Welcome back to Creepcast. Today we are doing a grab bag of sorts from an author named Manon Lysett, and we wanted to read a body of this author's work primarily because I found a story called "The Pigeons Around Here Aren't Real," and I just thought that was a really fun title. And after looking at some of the works, they're a bit smaller, so I figured we would read probably through either like 2 or 3 of them and just get a feel for the author, because a lot of these titles of these stories are really cool. I think we're going to start with a package marked "Return to Cinder," move into "The Pigeons Around Here Aren't Real," and then end off with "It All Started with a Hot Air Balloon." I don't know. I think that the titles are fun, and also I love these little dives on authors that have like shorter bodies of work. It's fun to kind of like get just like quick glimpses of these stories.
Mm-hmm. I think that Manon, I'm not seeing like a ton of published work, but it looks like a thing he does a lot of is he crafts like these little Halloween decorations, stuff like that. Like he does little sculptures of like jack-o'-lanterns and so if you go to his Twitter, which is the same name as his No Sleep, Manon Lysett, or Manon Lysett, however it's pronounced. He has a link to an Etsy page called Manon's Pumpkin Patch, and he crafts little like Christmas ornaments that are skulls and ghosts and stuff like that. It looks pretty cool. He also has a children's book he made, apparently. Little Pumpkin and the Fairy Lights, which is about like a little jack-o'-lantern pumpkin patch and stuff, and it looks very cute. So this guy's like an artist.
These little figurines are sick.
Yeah, he's like an artist, but like not in like just talking about dead people and like gross stuff like us. Like in a more legitimate way.
Are we sure this is also a man? Are we for sure this is a man?
I was assigning a gender there when I have no idea what that. I think the word Manon like subtly put into my brain, but I don't know. This person, whoever this is, does little figurines.
I'm gonna, you know what? You said man. I'm just gonna say woman. I have no idea. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't give a fuck. But I like the titles of these stories. I'm very excited. Mm-hmm. Especially just the pigeon one. The birds freak me out. I just don't like birds. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't like the 1,000-mile stare that birds give. It's just, I don't know. If you don't have eyelids, it's like, what's the point? Or whatever. Do birds have eyelids? It's a quick Google.
I'm almost positive that's going to be a yeah. I think I don't know if all of them do. I'm almost positive that's
yes. Birds have eyelids. Actually, they have 3 eyelids. Yeah. Okay, well that makes it even worse.
Yeah, well that's
upper eyelid,
go that far.
Lower eyelid, and then nictitating membrane. A translucent third eyelid that moves horizontally across the eye from inner to out. Oh my god. I do love a nice parrot, though. Very, very, or a toucan.
Is this the part
like
where,
a toucan and a parrot?
Is this the part where you launch into a story about like you watched a parrot like get molested or something when you were a child? Or
no. Actually, I can give you a quick story about a bird, but first I just want to tell you, be sure to listen to this episode on Spotify. Feel free to support us on the audio platforms if you are driving or commuting to work or something. Consider listening and rating us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really does help us out a lot. Now, let me get to you, before we move into a package marked "Return to Cinder," I had this aunt I lived with whenever I first moved to California. She lived in this retirement community in a town that I won't say. I mean, I just did not give specifics, but she did live in California. And she had a bird, like a parrot, in her house that would talk to her, right? But I always thought it was weird is she clipped the wings so it couldn't fly away. And I remember asking her, I was like, that's the most fucking torturous thing I've ever heard in my life, clipping a bird's wings. And it's just like, cool, I got to walk around. That's what birds are known for. You know what I mean? So then she's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It happens. People do it all the time, you know, whatever. And she basically made it insinuate that she's just like, you know, I'm letting my animal do what it wants. It wants to hang out inside, so I'm doing that. And I'm like, okay, so that's cool. It wants to hang out inside, so I'm going to cripple it. That's a fun way to look at it. So to deviate from that, because this is where it gets a little spicy, is we don't even talk about the bird at all. One night I come home. Once again, I mind you, she's in a retirement community. I come home. She's watching American Ninja Warrior in the living room, and her dog is licking her feet like obsessively, like whatever. And I was like, what what are you doing? She's like, I'm just watching American Ninja Warrior. And I mean, that little motherfucker is going at those piggies like crazy. Her feet are glistening. Like it's just been like licking at it forever. And I kind of sit down because, I mean, it's abhorrent. It's like obscene. It's like watching a car wreck. And I was like, you just letting them kind of go at your feet? She's like, yeah, I just let my animals do whatever they want. And it was a weird parallel where it was the same thing with the parrot, right? I'm letting him do, this is what he wants. So I clipped his wings. So my ass was thinking, I'm like, did this crazy old fucking woman lather her feet up in some kind of like, I don't know, coconut oil, honey, or fucking peanut butter? And she's just like, you want to lick my feet. You like it. You know what I mean? So anyways, the whole thing was like every afternoon she would sit there and she would watch American Ninja Warrior, and then that dog would come up and lick her feet for like hours. Like, I mean, like a long time.
Are you done?
Yeah, I guess. That was just, I thought that might be that whenever I said parrot, it just reminded me of that. So sorry. Sorry about that. Hello. We'd like to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Rocket Money. The other day, I wasted so much time trying to cancel subscriptions. Oh my God, so many subscriptions. It's ridiculous. They make it hard on purpose, and I almost just hung up the phone and made Nick do it. Sorry, Nick. Well, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help. Rocket Money is an easy-to-use app that helps you save more and manage your money better. I love using Rocket Money to cancel unwanted subscriptions. Once you get set up with Rocket Money and connect your bank account, the app finds all your subscriptions and puts them into a nice little pretty list. From there, you can select the ones you don't want anymore, and just with a few taps, the app can help you unsubscribe. But that's not all! Rocket Money also helps to automate your savings. We all need to save money, so why not let someone else do it for you? It automatically analyzes your accounts to determine the optimal time to save so you can reach your goals faster. Take control of your finances today. Go to rocketmoney.com/creepcast or click the link in the description to get started for free. Thank you so much, Rocket Money. Let's get back to the episode. All right, a package marked Return to Cinder by Menon Lysette. Hopefully I said that name right. Lysette. Don't know. Let's get into it.
My neighbor is one of those annoying wannabe YouTube personalities. Okay, well, immediately.
All right, well, okay. I was like, all right.
Oh, no, what do you mean?
All right, they're pointing guns at us.
What do you mean personalities? Well, let's calm down here. Okay. Out of the gate swinging. Over the years, I've seen him cough out cinnamon, lay flat on the hood. Oh, it's one of these people. Okay, in that case, yes, I agree. We have to kill this guy. I've seen him cough out cinnamon, lay flat on the hood of his car as it slowly creeps down the driveway, and douse himself in lukewarm water, all while screaming epic win, epic fail, or epic maintenance of... Would you like to read these in a YouTuber voice, in an influencer voice?
Epic win, epic fail, fuck, epic maintenance of the status quo.
Who the fuck says that? Where did that come from?
I think that's
screaming.
That's the author being sarcastic. It's like they're screaming epic win, epic fail, or epic maintenance of the status quo for all I know.
Oh, so this is like a lay meme moment, whatever. Or epic maintenance of the status quo. Sheep.
Yeah, I think that's the vibe. Yeah.
Sheeple.
Right. It can get tiring to watch him go about his shenanigans in the pursuit of viral fame. So when he knocked on my door the other day, told me he was going away for a few weeks, and asked that I get his mail, honestly, it was a relief. I can't explain the peace of mind I had knowing I didn't have to brace myself for any of his stupidity for a while. I was always afraid his stunts would wind up bleeding over into my life.
I like the idea too. I like the idea of this guy being like, because I immediately thought that the YouTube person was like a kid, but now he's like, hey, can you pick up my mail? I'm like, this is a 38-year-old guy.
Yeah, well, he said like on his own car, right?
Yeah. I expected like a 16 or 17-year-old is what I was expecting.
I mean, this guy should know all you need in order to be successful on YouTube is just find a bunch of stories that you didn't write and then make glorified react content.
Hey, come on, man. Hey, we're it's a campfire story podcast.
Rake in the money.
All right, dude. All right. You know what? We do a good service here, and we bring. I don't have to defend us.
No,
dude.
go ahead. I want to hear.
Now we're going to be ostracized.
I want to hear what your defense of this would even be. Go ahead. What do we do that's a good work?
You know what? Nothing, dude.
No.
Not a damn thing.
No.
You know what?
Go
I
ahead.
thought it was friendly banter where you could read the story on your own, but this is reading it with pals, fun voices, fun interaction and bits. It's basically getting together and going camping with your buddies, except probably less homosexual stuff going on, right?
How bad can I be? I'm just building the
Why do I feel like you've done a little fucking? Why do I feel like you've done a little scratch and sniff with your buddies down by the river?
I'm not. We are not finishing whatever that sentence was you were about to say. You cut that out right now. You also you can never. Okay, I'm not getting down. I'm not going down to your level. I'm not stepping into the trench.
You always cross your legs whenever you bring up the word canoe. You always do. Ooh.
Okay. You know what? You phrase it like got a little scratch and sniff with your buddies. You always make it.
Come on, dude.
So much worse.
Little tiger tail.
You always
know what I mean?
See like that.
I'm not trying to belittle or make light of the things you've done with your buddies in the past. Like, I'm not trying to like say it's gross. I'm just saying sometimes they'll scratch and sniff.
Okay.
Can
I get back to the story?
There was a famous quote. Forgot who it was from, but it said sometimes the cucumber tastes better pickled.
You're referencing your own quotes. Yeah, that is how desperate we are for content. We're cannibalizing our own clips that people like.
That was from a show or something. I can't remember what show it was.
That was a show. That was
literally like a Comedy Central show. I swear to God.
Perhaps some kind of creepy one.
No. It was a Comedy Central show.
Can I go back to reading the story? His neighbor's a YouTuber. He asked him to take the mail. Okay.
Yes. He's like, come get the mail.
Things were pretty normal for the first couple of days. He received a few bills, a bit of spam, and what I could only assume was a birthday card. Then, one evening, I got home to find a cardboard box waiting on his front porch. In big red letters was written, "Return to sender."
So that's referring to the book, like the guy sent the box and now it's brought back to his house.
I would think.
Right?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. I'm no small fry, but I admit I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy. Lugging it across the road to my house was even harder, and I quickly realized there was no way I was going to drag it up the stairs and through my front door. I decided I'd leave his package in my garage. It wasn't like I kept my car in there. The garage door was a piece of shit that refused to open without a good thug and a whack. It was less trouble just leaving the car in the driveway than it was to fight with the garage door every morning and night. In hindsight, I should have set the package down while I struggled to open the tricky door, but you know how it is when you've got a good grip on something. No point in setting it down if you don't have to. It was as I kicked the door for a third time that I lost my grip on the package and it fell to the ground. I heard a light crack inside.
Shit.
I hoped I hadn't broken anything important, but figured I just wouldn't tell my neighbor about it and let him assume the break happened en route.
Wow, what a guy.
Well, I mean,
what a buddy.
Look, if it broke while it was in the box, then it broke while it was in the box, you know? Like,
right.
I can't. Who am I to say, when...
Right.
I'm not omniscient. I don't know when it cracked. Exactly, yeah.
I fucking punted it like a Nerf football.
Look, it was
wasn't
close. It was close when I found it, so who's to say? It is Schrodinger's broken cat. It's both. Mm-hmm. It's neither broken or not broken until you open it.
Philosophical.
Mm-hmm. I try. Hands-free, I finally managed to get the garage door unstuck. And boy, did it screech in protest as it rolled up and over me. I dragged the box the rest of the way, set it in the corner for whenever my neighbor would come back to claim it. And then I forgot all about it. Till a few days passed, that is. I'm not sure exactly how long it took for the smell to waft in from the crack under the garage to house door, but it came in slow progression. It was a sickly sweet odor, similar to a skunk, and for the first few days after I smelled it, I genuinely assumed that's exactly what it was. Roadkill that had left its mark on my house. It was only when I realized the scent was growing more intense instead of fading that I went looking for a source. That's when I opened the garage door. That's when the odor knocked me back, holding my nose. So my guess right now is that it's a dead person.
Yeah, makes me think of one of those like true crime things where the cops go in and it's like, oh, there's a dead body in a freezer or something, or like in a closet.
Yes, I think because that smell, the sickly sweet smell, is always the way that dead human bodies are described. So maybe
really,
yes.
I did not know that. So wait, so it's like roadkill, but it has like a
smells like.
I guess how would it be sweet?
Smells like rotten fruit.
Oh, okay.
That there's
Wow,
like
that's weird.
There's a
I wonder
tone.
why.
I think it's because of like the bacteria in people or something like that. It's kind of like there's a tinge of like, oh, there's supposed to be something there that isn't rotten, like when food goes bad. But it's mostly just like sickly is a good word for it. It's like there's a drape of like smog on top of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The culprit wasn't hard to identify. The only change in my garage was the box in the corner. I remember thinking it must have been one of those meat of the month subscription boxes. The meat must have gone rancid from being left out of the fridge for so long. How much meat could have been in there for the box to have been so large and heavy? An entire freaking cow? I covered my nose as I approached the box, a pair of scissors in my hands. I probably wouldn't have needed them to open it, as it had become soggy enough at the bottom to poke through with a finger. But I wasn't about to poke my finger into spoiled meat juices. That soggy bottom was the reason I had to open the box in the first place. If I tried to drag it out whole, everything would spill onto the floor. I was going to have to dump the pieces of meat one garbage bag at a time, take them down to the dumpster, a process I wasn't looking forward to. My scissors tore through the tape along the top of the cardboard box. I thought the smell couldn't get any worse, but as I flipped the flaps open, I discovered a whole new gamut of stink. It was like opening a burning oven, but instead of a heat wave, I was met with waves of piss, sweat, shit, and putrefaction. It was so bad that I staggered back and had to force down the puke, begging to guzzle out of me. I don't think I could have handled that scent mingling with the horrors coming out of the box. I'm not ashamed to admit I ran out of the door for a breath of fresh air, but in the short time I'd spent in the garage, the smell had become so ingrained in the fabric of my clothes that it clung to me like a shadow. Nothing I tried could keep the smell out of my nostrils. Not air fresheners, not a face mask, not 3 showers and a change of clothes. Every second that box lay open in my garage was another second the smell was allowed a foothold into my home. I had to bite the bullet. I returned to the garage, the flaps of the box still open as though inviting me to look. I was prepared, a clothespin pinning my nostrils shut, a garbage bag in one hand, the strongest cleaner I could find in the other, and long rubber gloves to keep my skin from having to touch what was inside. But, as it turns out, I needed none of those things. I wouldn't have to touch or clean the contents of the box. I'd only have to suffer the nightmares every night. You see, there was meat in that box, but it didn't come from a cow or a pig. No, it was worse than that. It was my neighbor, dead. Still in one piece, but dead.
Oh, wow.
That's
just like
sick.
all curled up, like wrapped up.
Yeah.
So wait, saying the neighbor is in the person that was like, hey, I'm leaving. Can you check my mail?
The YouTube wannabe guy. Yeah. Can you check the mail for me?
So this is either he was either, it almost feels deliberate of like he knew it was going to be returned back.
Yeah.
And I guess then why would you even send it? Or maybe I'm curious. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Go ahead.
I called the cops and naturally they took me in for interrogation. It's kind of hard not to suspect the man with a corpse in his garage after all. Thankfully, they soon realized I wasn't involved. My DNA might have been all over the box, the smell might have left marks throughout my house, but there was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence. A vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. I'm not sure if they were allowed to, or if they felt so bad for me they figured it couldn't hurt. Either way, I saw it. My neighbor was sitting in the box outside of a shipping facility, laughing as he told the world how he was going to mail himself across state lines. He brought pee bottles, food, a pillow, and a few flashlights. His friend, a guy I'd seen at his place several times to help with his stunts, closed the lid and presumably dropped him off for shipment. Throughout the next couple of hours or days, I'm honestly not sure, my neighbor recorded a few short clips about his progress.
I think I'm in the truck now. I can feel it moving. Must be in a warehouse. Pretty warm here. Still got plenty of food.
That kind of stuff. And then, on the last entry, the box toppled over. He broke his neck, and that was it. The camera recorded until either the memory card got too full or the battery died. There's one thing I didn't tell the police after they showed me the video. One thing I heard in the footage that will haunt me to the day I die. Just after the tumble that broke his neck, I heard the familiar screeching sound of my garage door.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, I like that. That's the little end.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a fun little. I like. You know, this reminds me of a bit. Is it reminds me of the scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah, just like little micro horror vignettes. Yeah,
it props up an idea. You think you know where it is, and on the last second, on the last little line, it kind of subverts it at the last second. Of like, you know, I love the idea too of like, because I'm guessing that the whole thing was he was like, I'm gonna mail myself back to my house is what I'm wondering.
Well, the joke is like, I'm going to be a box. Like I'm going to vlog going through all this
state
stuff,
lines,
and then eventually it's going to get returned to sender. So I'll like go back to his house, my buddy or something.
Well, it's like, and then it's like, hey, check my mail. So then I expect he's like, the big surprise is that he's going to pop out and be like, hey,
yeah,
whatever with his camera.
No. Crack.
But no, you grab the thing. I guess because the thing is he would be quiet because he doesn't want you to know that it's him. But didn't the smell already happen?
No. So he said, I went back to read it. So he drops it, puts it in the corner, and he says, after a few days passed, I'm not sure how long it took for the smell to waft in.
Okay, so he was going to do like a little surprise thing, but didn't expect to fall and break his neck, so he just died.
And then he says, so after a few days, he started to smell something. And then he says, the first few days after I smelled it, it was slow progress. But then like after a
just
few
a body
more days,
decomposing.
So after like a couple, he probably didn't open this guy for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and it's just like sitting in a garage or something, like a hot garage.
Just baking
just festering.
in there.
Yeah, exactly. Baking in a cardboard UPS box. Do you know how funny that footage would be, though? A guy in there, it's just like, you know, like heavy breathing, like a guy probably laughing like a little bit. And then just, you know, just like that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. And that's all it'd be. It'd be haunting, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, kind of funny. A little funny.
I have to compliment the writing here because like it got me like twice. Because I remember at the very first time when it's like, because me and you said from the beginning, like it's a human body. It's definitely a human body. But then it's like, oh, it's his friend's human body. Oh, that's a surprise. And then at the end when it's like he died because he dropped him and that crack mentioned earlier was his neck. It's like, oh, that like it. It kept having fun deliveries, even though you kind of knew where it was going. It was pretty good.
It's the fun. I was wondering how it was going to loop around too with, it's like, oh, he's a content guy. He does a lot of stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. I've seen him do stupid things like choke on cinnamon. And it was one of those things where you're probably like, oh, this is just describing like, not an imbecile, but you're just like, it's this like kind of a strange outgoing person doing YouTuber. Something for fame.
Yeah.
So you're wondering, my mind immediately went like, oh, he killed somebody and mailed it to his house or, you know, whatever, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But the idea of him doing a prank like this is, it makes no sense.
He did like a J station, like I'm ordering someone from the dark web video or whatever, like a body showed up. Yeah.
So this next one is The Pigeons Around Here Aren't Real. This is kind of an older one, 10 years ago, and it won the best title of 2015 into December 2016. Award, which it's a great title. Very, you know, we talk about the titles and you know how titles themselves are pieces of art as well, of like getting people hooked and your imagination also running. Like a title is just as important as the body.
Oh, is this the one that won?
This just says best title of 2015, so I'm guessing it won best.
Okay.
Title, but I'm not sure. I don't know about story.
The Reddit thing confuses me because sometimes it'll show an award, but it's like, oh no, that's not the story's award. That's an award the author got one time. It's like,
yeah,
okay.
the award the author got, or sometimes too, I think it just like puts that award on the author's description, so it appears on like maybe every one of their stories, even though maybe it's just for one particular thing. I don't know how the Reddit award thing works, or like whatever, but yeah, this story is called The Pigeons Around Here Aren't Real. Once again, by Man and Lysette. We're only reading their stories today. So let's dive into this one.
Pigeons around here aren't real. Are you ready, Hunter?
The pigeons around here are not real. I'm ready.
It's no secret that big cities have pigeon problems. Toronto was no exception. Like rats in the Middle Ages, the disease-carrying vermin spent the past decade running amok and increasing their numbers. It was my job to try and keep Toronto's ever-growing pigeon population in check. Thankfully, I came across an article about a pilot project where researchers replaced pigeon eggs with wooden substitutes. The birds, too stupid to know the difference, spent months caring for the fake eggs instead of producing more. The project was a huge success, and the pigeon population decreased significantly in a short amount of time. It sounded like the perfect plan, so I implemented the solution in my city. What I didn't count on was for those fake eggs to hatch and for the abominations inside to be released into the world.
That's kind of interesting. Weird. Yeah, that's cool.
Clint, my partner, came in one morning carrying a large wooden crate with a straw poking out of every crevice.
Looks like Christmas came early this year. What is this stuff?
I walked over excitedly, helping him set the box down on a workbench.
This,
I said, prying it open to reveal its contents,
is the solution to our pigeon problem.
Reaching inside, I took one of the eggs. I was a little disappointed to see that they weren't wooden as promised. Instead, they were thin, light, and hollow like those cheap plastic Easter eggs. It wasn't close to what I was expecting.
Oh well, that's what you get for ordering off eBay.
I thought. Clint took a handful.
These are the replicas you ordered? They don't feel remotely the same as the real deal.
We were well aware of what the eggs felt like. Up until then, the only way to decrease the pigeon population was to sneak into their nest and steal the eggs. It was a futile, temporary solution because the birds would just lay new eggs once they realized theirs were gone. That's what made the idea of using substitutes so damn good.
It's fine, Clint. They don't have to fool us. They just have to fool the pigeons. This'll work, trust me.
I was right. The pigeons fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. A few months passed, and we started seeing a decline in the amount of younger birds in the area. I can't tell you how proud I was of what I'd done. I'd found a safe, environmentally friendly way of dealing with the flying rats at the cheap cost of a few $100s and an elevator trip to pigeon nesting grounds atop high-rise rooftops around the city. The problem started about 3 months in. Clint and I were inspecting nests on opposite sides of the city. I was halfway up the building when Clint called me.
Yo!
I said as I brought the phone to my ear. The sound of wind could be heard in the background. Evidently, Clint had reached his destination.
Hey, some of our eggs broke.
The elevator came to a stop, doors swinging open to let me off. I stepped out and made my way to a small staircase leading to the rooftop.
We'll just have to replace them. No big deal.
There had been a few violent storms since our last inspection, and I figured the eggs must have fallen from the nest and shattered on impact.
See, this is why wood would have been better.
I grumbled to myself as I exited onto the rooftop for my inspection.
Oh, fuck. What?
Most of my eggs were broken too. The strange thing was that they were still tucked in the nest, right where we left them. Had the pigeons figured out our ploy and attacked the replicas? Were the fake eggs too frail to survive our harsh Canadian weather? I groaned.
It's the same here. We're gonna have to start over.
I told him, defeated.
It's all good. We can hatch a new plan.
I paused for a moment.
Did you just...
I began, but he interrupted.
Just look on the sunny side up of things, yeah?
Puns at a time like this, puns.
Don't yoke with me. Right.
The funniest slide there to me was puns at a time like this, puns. It's like, this isn't a joking matter, Clint. The eggs are broken.
Yeah, the fragile hollow eggs.
This is not a
God
time
damn
for
it.
laughter. You never take anything seriously. This is why Margaret left. We couldn't leave the nest unattended for too long. Otherwise, all our progress would go down the drain. I sent Clint to replace the broken eggs with what was left from our original order. In the meantime, I searched online for anyone selling wooden eggs. Unfortunately, the cheapest and fastest shipper was the person we had ordered from the first time around. We needed these eggs quickly, and our budget was pretty tight. I figured I'd order the subpar eggs one more time. If they lasted long enough for city officials to see the plan was working nicely, then I was sure I could convince them to increase our budget so we could order better supplies next fiscal year. Just to be sure the pigeons weren't attacking our fake eggs, I also set up a security camera on one of the rooftops. I needed to know if they gotten wise to our ruse, though I highly doubted they had the mental capacity to do so. Still, the project would prove fruitless if the birds weren't fooled by our cheap imitations, so it was best to keep an eye out. Over the course of the following weeks, I started getting strange reports about small animals behaving weirdly. Frankly, I didn't pay much attention to them at first. They sounded a little insane, to tell the truth. One woman claimed she'd seen a pigeon climb a tree. She said he crawled up the bark like a squirrel. Another report stated that a chipmunk had been seen attacking and killing a neighborhood dog. Another witness called in about an injured cat, but when he investigated, all he found was a pelt. By the time I read the 5th report, I was starting to get a little worried. What was even more troubling to me was that these reports were coming from all over the city. If it had been confined to a single neighborhood, I would have suspected an outbreak of rabies or a new disease of some sort. But the reports were coming in from all around Toronto and its suburbs, which span an extremely large area. How could anything spread so quickly? It had to be something else. I was just about to do a bit of research on the subject when Clint came in wearing a scowl.
Broke shitty fucking eggs. Broke again.
He grumbled, throwing himself on a chair. I forced a grin.
Crack a smile, would you?
The puns. He tossed his worksheet on the table.
That was an excellent pun.
He replied, releasing a chuckle.
You remember to bring the footage?
He unzipped his coat and reached into his pocket for an SD card.
Got you covered. Movie time.
We uploaded the footage and took a look. Pigeons. Pigeons sitting on their nest. Pigeons preening. Pigeons flapping their wings at one another. A squirrel. A squirrel getting chased away by birds. More pigeons. It must have been the dullest security tape in the world. The kind of footage that even David Attenborough's lovely voice wouldn't be able to save. We fast-forwarded through days of pigeons doing pigeony things. Never once did they show any violence towards our replica eggs. Clinton had dozed off by the time something finally happened on screen. The only reason I was still conscious was due to the copious amount of coffee I'd ingested that morning. It was dead of night. In the video, at least, one of the birds flew off its egg and perched itself on the nest, peering inside. This is it, I thought, leaning closer to the screen. I figured he'd attack the egg, but I was wrong. I watched as the video soundlessly continued, and something cracked open the egg from the inside. My jaw gaped open. This wasn't possible. The eggs were plastic shells. The only explanation was that we'd missed one real egg somewhere in the bunch. Yeah, that had to be it. I was witnessing the birth of a baby pigeon. Nothing weird. Except, baby pigeons don't look like smoke. A puff of dark air came out of the egg. The pigeon, head inches from it, inhaled the gassy substance. It reared back and stood completely still for about a minute before falling over. I watched as it started thrashing violently, like it was having a seizure. Then, from its beak spewed some kind of chunky liquid that evaporated as soon as it hit the air. The pigeon's body seemed to deflate like a balloon, as though the creature was being hollowed out. I was left staring incredulously at the flat, immobile husk of what had once been a pigeon. Suddenly, the pigeon's chest bulged out and the animal regained its form. At least, sort of. Its proportions were all wrong. Its wings were bloated and angled oddly. Most of its girth was in its neck rather than stomach, and its midsection had stretched out unnaturally. It was like looking at an animal pelt draped over the wrong mound. Like a lunatic taxidermist's cruel experiment. The abomination of nature jerked its head towards the ledge. It twisted onto his back legs, contorting and dislocating in such a way as to be able to reach the ground. From its throat, I could see stump-like arms stretching out, clawing at the cement rooftop. In quick and jagged movements, the creature skittered over the edge and disappeared from view. I was shocked, unable to believe what I had seen. I had to watch and rewatch the video several times before it occurred to me to wake Clint up. He grumbled unhappily, rubbed his tired eyes, and looked at me.
You won't believe this.
I rewound the footage and pressed play. His eyes widened with the same disgusted disbelief as mine. Even on my 5th viewing, I couldn't wrap my head around it.
This is bad. I know.
After watching the video a few more times, we went home. I think we both hoped a good night's sleep would help clear our minds. Maybe upon reviewing the tape, we'd realize we were mistaken. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Unlikely, but we could only hope. Clint was already at work when I came in. His eyes were glued to the screen.
Watching it again? Not exactly. I kept going.
I approached the desk and peered at the monitor.
Kept going.
His face was pale and his eyes weighed down by large bags. How long had he been here? Had he come in extra early?
There was 2 days left of footage on that card. And you went through it? Yeah. Did you see more of those things?
Clint pressed his lips together.
Yeah, and some of them came back.
I raised my eyebrows, looking closer at the screen. I noticed something odd about one of the nests. There were multiple eggs resting in the sunlight. They were neither genuine pigeon eggs nor replicas. They were too big for that. Clint pointed to the batch, his hand trembling.
It laid them.
I felt a flush of nervous energy climb up my spine like an elevator, and then turned to the reports I'd been reading the day before. Were the eggs at the center of it all?
We need to call the authorities. We are the authorities.
I paced around the room, back and forth, like a pendulum. The phone rang, interrupting my anxious march. It was another report of odd animal behavior. This time, the culprit was a deer. In a spooked and almost disgusted tone of voice, the woman on the line explained that she'd seen a deer slithering along the river. She said its body was sideways, but its head was upright. What? Oh no, I thought. Whatever those things were, they could affect larger animals. While I tried to comfort the worried caller, I heard something from Clinton's workstation. Crack. I turned around only to see a puff of smoke rising towards my coworker. Oh, near
Hell
his
yeah.
keyboard was a cracked shell, just like the ones on the rooftop. Without a word, Clint bolted to the bathroom, holding a hand over his mouth as though about to puke. I dropped the phone and ran over to the door. It was locked.
Clint, are you okay?
Silence, silence, silence. All of a sudden, I heard him heaving violently. A sound of moist gurgling and boiling water erupted from the bathroom. Terrified of what would happen if Clint got out, I pushed the heavy workbench in front of the door. I stood in terrified silence as the noise came to a stop. Was Clint now lying as flat as a pancake against the porcelain throne? Would it turn into some sort of bastardization of a human body, like what happened to the pigeon? Silence. 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 Bang! Clint threw himself against the door violently. Just one blow nearly threw the thing off its hinges. Again and again, he slammed himself against the surface, causing the workbench I'd placed in front of it to slowly inch away. All I could do was push myself against it to try and keep the door closed. My only thoughts were to keep him from escaping, for my own safety. I knew he'd attack me if I let him out. I just knew it. The sound came to an unexpected halt, allowing me to breathe a sigh of relief. Maybe he'd expired. Maybe that thing needed fresh air to survive. Whatever the reason, I thought I was safe. But then I heard a crash. The window. I'd forgotten all about the bathroom window. He's out there now. Him and those other mutated atrocities. I don't know what they are or what they want. All I know is that they're roaming the city right now, doing God knows what. Most of them probably look like pigeons, but they can be anyone or anything. I just hope something figures out how to stop them because, at last count, there were over 700 of those cursed eggs planted around Toronto. Now that I know these things can reproduce, God knows how many more eggs might be out there. Sick. So that was the end before the first update. That's a really cool idea.
I'm guessing that was their initial end, and then now there's updates to it. Like there's more to the story, so we're not done yet. But no, that's really cool. I mean, I like the idea of. It seems like the manufacturer of these eggs. Do you think that they're some kind of like cursed egg or something? Or
it sounds like it like hollows you out, as he said, and it fills you with some other animal, right? Because it describes the pigeons looking like squirrels, and it describes like the squirrels behaving like chipmunks behaving like other things. So it's like there's different animals that it's like they hollow you out and just fill you up with something, right? Like the deer that's slithering like a snake, right? It's like the soul of a soul, the soul almost the figure of a snake inside of a deer.
It's almost like it transforms things into another kind of vermin, or something.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like. Really putting emphasis on the vermin in the skies, and that kind of thing, and how if they could just have control of this thing, then everything would be okay. But it's like a hubris, it's very much to be in like, well, we can control nature. The thing that I'm curious about, I wonder if they get into more, is like the place that they're manufacturing the eggs. Is that the thing that's like, are they the reason that the things are cracking up with the smoke, or is it like the pigeons themselves, or something with like, Mother Nature being with these things? Is it like transforming even these eggs and producing something? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. We're going to get updates that may describe it, and that's fine. But I almost kind of like, you never see what a human looks like when it goes through the process. It like goes into the bathroom and you hear it throwing itself, and it goes out the window.
God help me. If this does not end with a pigeon man, I am going to be fucking livid.
Well, but don't you like imagining the pigeon man?
I want to see that motherfucker come back with his 3 eyelids and then being like, and he's like, Clint. And he's like, call me. You know what I mean? Something weird like that. I say go for it.
Yeah. All right.
Swing for the fences.
Fair enough. All right. Let's read the update.
All right. Update 1.
He came back. I should have known he'd come back. He warned me before. He said creature on our recording returned to its nest to lay an egg. Those monsters seemed to have the salmon mentality, going back to their place of birth when it came time to reproduce. Too busy answering a slew of panic calls, all the while panicking myself. I didn't hear him when he came in through the front door. Thankfully, I caught a shape from the corner of my eyes. Without even finishing my sentence, I dropped the phone and locked myself in the maintenance closet, praying he hadn't seen me. Outside the thin wooden door, the room was quiet. If he was breathing, I couldn't hear it. His footsteps were just as silent. Had I overreacted? I hadn't actually seen Clint, just a shadow in my peripheral vision. Maybe it was my imagination. I needed to know, so I knelt down, peered through the crack under the door, close enough to get a better look. I wish I had it. I wish I could erase that thing from my mind, to preserve Clint's memory as the man I knew him to be. Not that.
Come on.
Anything but that.
Come on.
What I saw was a mess of flesh inching along the floor like a slug. I couldn't figure out what was facing up, his back or his chest. His spineless torso had folded over, bringing his arms nearly perfectly in line with his legs. His head, now completely shapeless, lay flat at his midsection. His mouth reminded me of a figure in Munch's famous painting, The Scream. His great eyes stared at me, but I could tell, as he continued to slither toward his desk, that they were useless decorations. He disappeared from view. Then came a horrid sound. A squishy and gooey noise that reminded me of that old slime ball toys I used to play with as a child. It lasted a few moments, stopped, started again, and then stopped for good. Shaking in my boots, I remained concealed in my dark prison all day, ignoring repeated hunger pangs and my own instinct to run. I couldn't afford the risk of being caught. As day shifted into night, I began to wonder if I could sneak past him. On our security tape, I'd seen normal pigeons sitting on nearby nest, seemingly unfazed by the creature. Maybe Clint wouldn't attack me. I had to take the chance. I couldn't hide forever. As quietly as I could, I swung the door open and stepped into the office. The thing wearing Clint's skin was gone. Thank God, I thought. Out of morbid curiosity, I glanced at his workstation, where I'd heard the unsettling noises earlier. There were 2 massive eggs sitting on his desk, coated in a viscous substance. I didn't even want to think of the implications. I didn't want to know out of which orifice he laid them. I wanted nothing to do with this anymore. I ran out of my office to my car and drove straight to Kingston. I'm not going back. I will never go back. Someone else will have to deal with this situation. How do you feel about Slug Man? Are you okay with that?
No, I think that kind of to your point earlier.
No, I don't think.
I mean, don't get me wrong. In a movie sense or something, don't get me wrong. It's cool. Like, I mean, if I saw the thing, I'd be like, that thing rules. But in terms of like building tension and
You wanted the pigeon.
The horror of it. No, not even the pigeon. I think that if you're going this angle where you're not even confronting it, I think don't even look at it. I think imagine it. Hear the sounds. Like kind of like in the last video we read of like the blind woman. It's like hearing the thing and like not really knowing what it looks like is more horrifying than being like, oh yeah, his his face was flattened. And don't get me wrong, it's cool, but I think to imagine something of like hearing noises of like animal noises, it was a mixture of man and animal. I think would be a little more effective in my opinion, at least for me. Because then, if anything, too, then when you go in and you see the eggs, you're like, "What the fuck is this thing?"
Well, that's the point I was making earlier with like, do you like it if it just ended at him flying out of the bathroom window, right? And you never
sure. I mean, you could. I like the idea of him coming back. Like, I like the idea of spicing it up or something.
Yeah.
But I think you could be like, I think like keeping it at the end before the updates, it rules as well.
Would you with
also we got one more update and it's really short.
We do have one more update. I was gonna say, would you feel differently if it did describe it, but it was a pigeon man?
No, I mean if it was the pigeon man, he didn't even interact with it. It'd be something like it's almost like the fly or something where it's like you need to interact with it. Like you need to like it's like almost like deriving empathy from a creature, even if the creature is like something that is trying to attack you or something. It's like being able to see your mutated friend and talk with it and like understand. That was the best thing of the fly initially. Is the whole thing is it's like an analogy of somebody like or that you love is like dying of cancer and you have nothing you can do about it.
Their body's rotting and they can't change it. Yeah.
Exactly. I think like if you do something at that angle, even if you do some fun stuff where it's like a monster and it's trying to attack you, I think you can only go that far and you do a pigeon man. I think pigeon man rules. I'm going to go on my deathbed saying pigeon man rules, but I think it's more so it works more effectively if the horror comes from like your friend, the human connection, like the human relationship can never be the same. And it's this thing, him being like, I'm not going back. It's somebody else to deal with. I think that's kind of a shitty character thing of like what so you're just never like you don't give a fuck about this guy. Like I think that's like one thing where I'd be like, I didn't really care for that. But we got one. Let's just finish this last update.
Yeah, last update 2. I thought I could get away from them, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm imagining it, but the pigeons outside look odd. Not as disproportionate and disfigured as what I saw in Toronto, but there's something wrong about the way they move. I think those things are learning to better mimic the shapes of what they're possessing. And now they've spread.
And that's the end of our story. And I like the hubris of somebody being like, these pigeons are annoying. We're going to like, it's the hubris of man feeling like it could control nature.
I'm going to trick them into not reproducing. Yeah.
And then now it's something where it's basically you've started a new black plague, or you've started a new plague. And I think that's a lot of fun. I like that angle of it. I do think it's stronger if you don't do the updates at all and you just have your buddy at the end gets thrown out, and it's like if you're trying to have it be something short and to the punchy and it's concise and there's not a lot of fat on it. I think the story reads stronger that way. But all in all, I think it's a really fun story, even though I still am confused by the eggs cracking open and like the air coming through. I don't think you need to divulge like, you don't need to like harp on like, this is why it's doing this. But I think just a little something more to where it's almost like, oh, I bought these eggs from this dealer, which they did say, it's the cheapest one, but is the dealer like, is it a batch of something that's like cursed? Just a little something to where it don't overly explain something, but at least give us just a bit more, even though I wasn't really worried. Like I wasn't like, my mind, I didn't really give a fuck. I just like the weird body horror curse stuff. That's like my cup of tea. But just, if I had a few criticisms, that's what it would be. And just also the thing of him like abandoning his buddy at the end. I think like that's just kind of a shitty character arc. And to not even be not even to be punished for it too. Because that's like a thing where it's like you turn your back on your friend, and then usually having something to where that guy now has to reap what he sows, I think is a more satisfying conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like that story. It's a fun little vignette of like this thing is like possessing shapes. It's very Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But it starts with animals and then works its way up to people and stuff. That was fun. I like that.
Yeah,
I gotta say, for like micro horror, this guy's really guy or girl, since I don't know. which one, but
who knows? Who cares?
Who knows? Who cares? I like their stuff. This is a good author. I'm digging it so far.
Yeah, I mean, we can, and I think just for the sake of threes here, I think it just to have it be satisfying. We'll read one more, and it's once again by the same author, and it's called "It All Started with a Hot Air Balloon."
Kind of like me and you, our relationship.
It's true.
You remember me and you floating above the clouds?
So that's why I'm going to dedicate this last one. It all started with a hot air balloon to the viewer, to the audience. And if it sucks, I'm sorry. Don't know what I'm supposed to tell you, but this one's for you.
This one's for
Take it away.
It appeared on the horizon early one morning at the very far edge of Caleb's field. It was just a blip at first, but as it gently wafted closer to my property, it became large enough to blot out the sun. My son Henry was captivated. He'd never seen a hot air balloon in person before. He watched it drift closer and closer, then ran out on the porch in his dinosaur onesie, watched it creeping even closer. As I drank my coffee, I could hear the sputters of the fire keeping the colorful thing afloat. It would stop and start periodically, bursting to life in a geyser of flames. My son waved excitedly, but his excitement waned as the hot air balloon drew near.
Mommy, there's no one in the basket.
I heard the burner puttering.
What do you mean, honey?
I stretched down and peered up at the object in the sky. Henry was right. There was no one manning the hot air balloon. Weird, I thought, must have gotten loose. There hadn't been much wind that morning, but if whoever the balloon belonged to hadn't tied it down properly, it could have drifted off on its own. Out of curiosity, I grabbed my keys, buckled my son in the back seat of the truck, and took off after it. The balloon ran out of fuel and landed on the outskirts of my field, where I finally caught up to it. Caleb was already there, sitting on his four-wheeler and scrutinizing it with a perplexed expression on his face.
Morning, Grace,
he said, never looking away from the object as the envelope slowly lost its circular shape and fanned to the ground like curtains in the breeze.
Howdy, Caleb. Any idea what this straggler's doing here?
I opened the back door to let Henry out. My excitable son jumped out of the truck and bolted towards the hot air balloon. Thankfully, Caleb grabbed him by the shoulders and held him back.
No, son, it's not safe. Might catch fire. Best to keep your distance,
he told Henry. His gaze then fell on me.
Not sure.
I reckon it's a runaway tourist attraction from a few towns over.
He rubbed his bushy chin.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Henry squirmed in Caleb's firm grip.
Mom, I want to go look.
The last of the fabric fell and draped over a patch of soil.
Should be safe now,
said Caleb, jerking his head towards my son. I nodded back. He let Henry go. My boy squealed and ran towards the basket.
Eee! Careful not to touch the burner, honey. It's still hot.
I called out, hands on my hips. Caleb followed him at a much slower pace.
It's quiet this morning. Did you notice?
I shook my head.
It's never quiet with Henry around.
I picked up the pace as Henry pulled himself aboard. Though I knew it wasn't possible, a small part of me was afraid the balloon would inflate and my son would float off into the sky, never to be seen or heard from again. Just one of the many ridiculous automatic thoughts you get when you're a parent. Everything has the potential to be dangerous, even when it's not. Thankfully, the hot air balloon stayed right where it was, and Henry ran around in the basket like it was the best toy he'd ever seen.
Oh, now don't break anything, Henry,
I said, leaning over the side of the basket. Caleb knelt down, lifted the fabric, and inspected it curiously.
Everything looks intact. Best not leave it out here, though.
Help me put it in the back of the truck. I'll store it in the barn until its owner shows up.
It probably cost a pretty penny. Someone was bound to come claim it sooner or later. Maybe I'd convince them to take us up for a ride as a thank you. I shooed Henry out of the basket and told him to go sit in the truck while Caleb and I unhooked the fabric, rolled it, tossed it in the back. We then grabbed the basket and hoisted it up.
Shit.
I whispered, straining to lift it.
Heavier than it looks.
Beads of sweat were rolling down Caleb's face.
Probably because of the burner.
I nodded. It wasn't easy, but we managed to force it into the truck. Caleb helped me tie it down while Henry watched eagerly from the back seat.
Phew.
Mumbled, wiping my brow. I was definitely having second thoughts about bringing it into the barn. Maybe I'd just throw a tarp on it once I got home and call it a day. Caleb wiped his hands on his jeans.
I best be heading back. The wife will want to know what all the excitement was about.
He hopped on his four-wheeler and gave me a wave.
Thanks, Caleb. Y'all take care.
We both took off in opposite directions. Henry watched as Caleb disappeared on the horizon and then stared at our rows of corn the rest of the way home. As we pulled into the driveway, Henry said,
Mr. Scarecrow doing a good job today.
all right, nope. 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 All right, Henry, you're going in that balloon. I'm going to light it myself.
That's exactly.
You're getting out of
that's
here.
like the thing in like the Babadook. I would beat that kid with a fucking hammer if I was in Babadook. You know what I mean? Good Lord.
Mr. Scarecrow's doing a good job today. What?
Just the idea of like a kid says one freaky thing and you're like just the most brutal way to murder someone.
I would do, oh yeah?
Oh yeah, Mr. Babadook scary? You know what else is scary? Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, you know what's also scary? My fucking ball peen hammer. My DeWalt ball peen hammer.
Mr. Scarecrow's doing a good job today. What?
He pointed to the field.
Look.
I followed his gaze to the scarecrow. For the first time in years, there were no crows cawing around it, or anywhere else on the property. The stupid thing never worked before. Don't know why it was working now.
Well, I'll be damned.
Caleb was right. Without the incessant bird calls, and with most of the animals still asleep, it was rather quiet out. So quiet, in fact, that I could hear a low atmospheric hum droning out in the background. The kind of sound you only notice when everything else goes away. It was neither peaceful nor annoying. It was just a constant, low sound, easily drowned out by my son's babbling. Well,
I'm calling aliens. I'm calling aliens. I'm betting on aliens. What do you think?
Very nope to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the way that the balloon's like just a vessel for like some, or it is some alien.
Yeah, I almost thought that like if it was like UFOs, someone got picked up while they're in the hot air balloon.
Yeah.
You know how funny it'd be if someone
that's
gets abducted.
actually I didn't
like-
even think about that. That's a great idea. That's crazy.
They're like, wee! They're ballooning, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, and they just get sucked out really quick from air.
Like he pulled up a tractor beam.
Yeah, I just sucked out of it.
Spencer, our farmhand, arrived late that morning. I was already washing the dishes from breakfast when I saw him driving up the road. He had a bad habit of being tardy, so I wasn't exactly surprised when he came running through the door, huffing, puffing, and apologizing.
Sorry, ma'am. This is the last time, I swear.
I stared at him, unimpressed.
Did you hear what happened?
The hot air balloon? Yeah, I was there. And I still managed to make it back here on time to feed the livestock.
He lowered his head in shame.
Sorry, ma'am.
It's fine. Just get to work, all right?
He nodded. Just as he was about to step out the door, however, he heard a booming noise off in the distance.
What in the tarnation was that?
He asked, peering out towards the field.
Transformer exploded.
Too loud for that.
I know she meant transformer, like a power transformer, but
Yeah, must be Optimus Prime.
they look out the window.
I guess they're GoBots.
Like star screams, like exploding over the field.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to kill you.
Transformer exploded. Must be.
Well, I guess it's Megatron and Optimus Prime fighting out in the cornfield again.
Do you mean that the GoBots and the Decepticons are fighting again there, miss?
That's right, Spencer.
They have to do this battle in order to obtain the cube. What's the name of that cube in those movies? The Allspark. That's they're trying to fight for the Allspark, man.
Well, I guess that maybe they're trying to go out and find the Allspark that are hidden in the well out back.
Well, be sure and throw a tarp over it, Spencer. It's going to be a long night.
Yes, ma'am.
Just the idea of like these two rednecks. And there's just like, there's like 30-foot tall robots like rolling in the field.
Shooting guns and stuff.
Yeah, like stray bullets are hitting the house every now and then.
Yeah, Henry's just like,
I can't believe what I'm seeing out there, Mom.
Yeah, like this is going on and they're used to it. That's like a hot air balloon.
yeah, exactly. Oh my God, the hot air balloon. I've never seen that before. That's incredible. Their tractor is like transforming into like a sentient robot that's getting like fucking murdered. Oh God! Optimus!
Help me, please.
Go with Christ, tractor. You're not going to make it this time.
The hot air balloon turns into a transformer, and they're like, oh. Just another one of those.
Yeah. Boring. I'm bored.
We stepped onto the porch and scanned the area until we spotted a wisp of smoke in the distance.
Looks like it's coming from the Burns field.
Probably just their tractor. Mr. Burns has been meaning to replace the old thing for years now. Guess the engine finally gave out.
I replied and shoved him lightly.
Come on. Enough procrastinating. You've got work to do.
She is cracking a whip on this guy.
I know. Goddamn, dude. Why don't you fucking give us some time,
My
dude?
word, let him breathe. The fields are on fire and something exploded, and you're like, are you
she's like,
procrastinating?
corn.
Get
Hey.
to work.
Hey, fucking idiot. Corn.
His eyes stayed locked on the small column of smoke for a moment, but he eventually nodded.
Right. Sorry, ma'am.
While Spencer was doing hard labor outside and Henry was watching cartoons in the other room, I got to work pickling vegetables for storage. It was nearing lunch when Spencer finally showed up again. He was covered in dirt.
Took care of the cattle and everything, ma'am.
Good work, Spence. I'll have lunch ready in a minute. You mind doing one last thing? There's a tarp in the barn. Be your dear and go get it for me.
Sure, ma'am. Where exactly?
In the storage loft. I can't miss it.
I'll be back in a minute.
I watched him walking into the barn while I tended to the hash browns. Then I waited. Waited for a couple of minutes. Then 5. Then 10. What the hell is taking so long? I paced back and forth, irritated. His car was still in the driveway, so I knew he hadn't slipped away to go flirt with some girl in town. With a grunt, I stomped into the barn, expecting to see him lounging about. I was prepared to chastise him for his laziness.
Spence!
I asked angrily as the door swung open. A ladder was propped against the wooden loft, the tarp at its feet. I grabbed the top and peered up, trying to find Spencer.
Spence, where you playing at?
No answer.
Spence, lunch is ready. Get down from there.
Still nothing. Not even a single creak from the wooden planks. All I could hear was the quiet hum from earlier. This time, slightly louder. If Spencer was up there, he was being perfectly still and quiet. 2 things he wasn't too good at. Tarp wedged under my arm, I grabbed the ladder and began climbing the rungs. I was about halfway up when I heard Henry calling.
Mom, I'm hungry!
Well, I had what I needed. I had the tarp. Spencer could play his stupid games all he wanted. Man, she is. Spencer could play his stupid games for all he wanted, for all I cared.
Spencer, no. All you can do, if you want to jack off in the loft of the barn, that's fine, but no food for you later.
Uh-oh.
I'll have to beating his big old donkey dick.
All right, well, see what I mean? You have to go too far. I'm talking about like, oh, she's so mean to this guy, and you always take it to
What
some.
does that mean? She's making him feel like a freak show.
Some proclivity, some horrendous, like it's something.
Up there
rather.
Sucking his lips,
See,
licking his lips and beating his big old.
All right.
donkey
Tap out. Okay. Well, I had what I needed. I had the tarp. Spencer could play his stupid games all he wanted, for all I cared. I slid back down and went back inside to serve lunch.
Where's Spencer? He's trying a brand new diet of cold eggs and ham. Ew. He's trying a brand new diet of beating his cock off.
We weren't there. The story wasn't there. Our bit wasn't there. You just accelerated it. Maybe if the bit ran its course for like another 2 sentences, it would have got there. But you are flooring it to get to the
Well, Henry,
to the rancid.
You're gonna be just like him when you're older. You're a monster. You're a pig.
See what I mean? Now you're talking about her speaking to her
What did I do
son
wrong?
with that tone of voice.
Spence is out back spitting his hand. He calls it Amish lotion.
All right. I'm
All he had was a bag of peanut M&Ms and a Coca-Cola. I think he'll be just fine. Yeah, he asked for a couple Jolly Ranchers. Oh, God. Henry, did you give him the Jolly Ranchers?
Why you gotta do Spence like that, bro? He's hard.
I like Spencer.
Oh gosh. We finished eating with no sign of Spencer. I was starting to get a little worried. He wasn't the most reliable guy. He'd often come in late and cut out early, but he'd never run off on me in the middle of the day. And he'd certainly never leave his car behind. I figured I'd go look for him once I was done with the dishes. Henry was playing with his toys, and I was drying off the last of the pots and pans. I probably never would have noticed it if the sun wasn't shining at just the right angle, sending a beam of light from floor to ceiling. Dust particles. They were dancing through the room's air currents. However, about a foot below the ceiling, there was a visible decrease in the density. I watched as little flakes swam up and disappeared beyond the invisible border. Weird, I thought, squinting at the empty space. There was something about it that made me feel unnerved. It's like I knew something was wrong, but couldn't quite put my finger on what. I looked outside, not a bird in sight for miles. I thought of the hot air balloon and how empty it had been. Thought about Spencer up in the bar's loft. Oh, that's cool. A bumblebee buzzed by the window, flew up beyond the intangible line, and disappeared. 1 second it was there, the next, it was just gone.
I'm gonna get my trucks.
Squeaked Henry as he ran towards the stairs. I grabbed him so quickly that he nearly fell.
Don't go upstairs.
I warned, my voice a mix of stern conviction and cackling terror. I gulped down a knot of apprehension. My eyes were locked on the immaculate separation between the dusty and nearly dustless air. In that moment, I could only think of one thing. Something I heard on TV. Dust is mainly comprised of dead skin cells. My blood ran cold. I could see it moving. The separation, I mean. Slowly, like the motion of the sun setting on the horizon. It was subtle, but it was definitely moving down. That's when I realized that humming sound from this morning was getting even louder. We need to get to lower ground, I thought. I wasn't even sure what was going on, but I knew that something bad would happen if we were caught under the unseen ceiling slowly dropping on us. We lived on a plateau surrounded by mountains, the lowest point for miles. There was no lower ground except for the cellar. Ducking my head, I grabbed Henry's arms and pulled him towards the door.
Mom, what are you doing?
He whined, tugging back. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. I closed the door tightly, unsure whether or not it would help keep it, whatever it was, out. The mere possibility that it might help was enough to bring me some form of comfort. With my free hand, I nabbed the flashlight I kept on the top step and climbed down with my son. It was cold downstairs, perfect for storage. I had shelves with jars full of pickled vegetables, homemade jams, and sealed meats lining every wall. The concrete room wasn't very inviting to a 7-year-old, so Henry usually stayed out unless I asked him to fetch me something. I let out a sigh of relief and took a seat on the bottom of the wooden staircase. I could hear frogs and crickets chirping happily outside.
Mom?
I didn't answer. Instead, I went over the facts in my mind. Was I exaggerating? What had compelled me to run and hide? An empty hot air balloon? A missing farmhand?
Mom! What, Henry?
He bounced around from foot to foot.
What's going on?
I paused, thinking it over. What was I supposed to tell the kid? I didn't even know what was happening. My eyebrows came together.
There's bad air up there. Like a fart? Yeah, something like that.
I hung my head and hid my face behind my hands. I was being stupid. At least, that's what I thought, till the croaks came to a sudden stop. So all the bullfrogs in the creek out back were suddenly holding their breaths. I found myself holding mine, waiting for the sound to come back. But all I heard were the crickets. 10 minutes later, the crickets went silent. The void from the hush that fell over the room couldn't even be filled by the pitter-patter of Henry's feet as he ran in circles, bored out of his mind. This is great, by the way. Mm-hmm. This is such a cool... The idea of, like, you can imagine where the level is because the frogs go first and then the crickets, right? Oh, man. My fear only increased as I spotted the jars of meat sitting on the top shelf of the rack in the corner. They were empty. I pointed the flashlight up and looked at the dust particles in its ray. They were disappearing about 2 feet from the ceiling, just like they had upstairs. And, just like upstairs, the invisible divide was getting lower. That low hum following suit. All I could do was watch as, over the course of an hour, the separation came closer and closer to my son and I, till it became clear that I couldn't sit on the stairs anymore. I pulled Henry into my lap and sat on the cold concrete floor, shaking as I watched the invisible ceiling falling on us. From time to time, I had to jiggle the flashlight to get it working again. I rocked my son gently, praying whatever was falling on us would stop and pull back, praying Henry wouldn't go rogue on me and run out of my grasp. As it came closer, I lay down and told my son to do the same. We had to stay as low to the ground as possible.
Don't move, honey. Mom, what are we doing? We're playing dead, honey. If you do good, I'll bake you your favorite cake. But you gotta be perfectly still, alright? Okay!
I wasn't sure what to expect. Would it hurt when it happened? Would we disappear like the people in the hot air balloon? Could we somehow be saved? I held my hand against Henry's chest, pinning him down like a seatbelt. I could feel him shivering against the cold stone floor. I was terrified he'd squirm and disappear forever. Should have brought a blanket, I thought. No, the blankets were on the second floor. The second floor hadn't been safe. There was a rock digging into my thigh, but I couldn't risk moving. The threshold was closing in on us, making me feel claustrophobic in the wide open room. I dropped the flashlight, closed my eyes tightly, and held my breath for as long as I could. I waited, listening to the droning hum getting louder and louder like a bug circling my ear. I could feel Henry's body heat radiating from his chest. As long as I felt the warmth on my arm, I knew my boy was okay. Even if I disappeared, at least he'd be lower to the ground. Low enough to be safe, I hoped. We must have been there for at least an hour, maybe 2, before the sound became more distant. Henry had somehow fallen asleep despite the displeasing conditions. I opened my eyes, finally gathering enough courage to reach for the flashlight. I flicked it on and carefully aimed it at the ceiling. The dust wasn't back, but I couldn't see a divide anymore. Either we'd been engulfed, or the phenomena had passed. I was afraid to move at first, but I finally raised my arm. Nothing happened. I sat up, still nothing. I let out a sigh of relief. We'd been spared. Somehow, by some miracle, we'd been spared. When the hum completely faded, I cautiously climbed up the stairs, keeping my head low. I opened the door and looked around. The sound was gone. The invisible divide gone with it. It was over. After waking Henry and warming him up, I headed out to the barn. It was empty. No birds, no livestock, not even a single fly buzzing around the cow manure. Every single animal on my farm had gone missing. We got in the truck and headed towards town. As we passed the Burns farm, I saw their crop duster crash to pieces in the field. This had been the explosion Spencer and I heard earlier. I stopped to check, but the plane was empty. I knocked on the Burns door, but received no answer. I drove to Caleb's farm and tried them. No answer. I drove to town. There was no one. Not a single living being, not even a damn squirrel. I don't know exactly what happened, but I'm afraid it's about to happen again. I can hear that hum in the distance. As much as I want to get out of here, I can't take the risk. I mean, the only path out of here is through the mountains, and I don't fancy going anywhere too high right now. I'm going to try my luck and hide in the cellar again. If you don't hear from me, it means we weren't lucky enough to be spared twice. What a cool idea, man.
Yeah, that's
so
by far the
creative.
strongest story we read today.
That was awesome. Just like, that's just such a creative idea of like, there's a visible line that anything like biological, even meat, jars of meat that go in its threshold just disappear. It's almost like a rapture story, right? Like everyone disappeared all at once.
It's like any, like not living organism, because the corn is probably still there, but it's like anything that's like life or something like like a animal.
Anything, any
type stuff, or
animal
even like
cells,
man.
anything with meat, yeah, just gone. And like the explosion mentioned earlier, and it's like the plane crashing, and it all started with the hot air balloon. Like, what a fun take. Or like the visual of Spencer walking up a ladder and disappearing. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I still feel like it's like a fun tale. Like I almost still read it as like an alien thing or something. The humming.
I
like
definitely think it
the
is
flying
a
saucer that's coming through, and it's like a new, like an interesting way of like a tractor beam.
It's almost like you could imagine aliens have come to Earth and they've put like a film around the
zones.
planet. Yeah, and it's just like killing any life that it can catch in like this field. So they're just doing sweeps over and over. What a cool. This was awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah, it all started with the hot air balloon. That was by far the funnest thing we read today. A lot of fun. I liked everything we read, but I think that one was just.
I think
just a
that
really
was
fun
the
take
strongest
on
because it's
aliens.
such an inventive threat. And like that part where she's laying down, I was thinking to myself, like, would it hurt? Would you disappear all at once? Does part of you have to touch it? You have to completely disappear? Like, it's just it's so unique, such a unique concept, and it was delivered so
very
well.
menacing.
Yeah, it's very because like, what do? You just
Nothing,
hope
yeah.
that you.
That's the
have
kind of
it
thing.
deep
It's a
enough
hopeless
cellar.
thing of you're just kind of waiting. It's like you introduce this time element to the
Mm-hmm.
threat, which makes it feel even more crazy. It starts so high, and it's just as the day's gone on, it's just progressively gotten lower.
And you could
very
you
fun.
could do so many scenarios with that setting because that's like a new setting to me. It's like, oh, maybe you had a group who was like out deep sea diving and they come up and everyone's gone, or you've got like someone who's like in a swimming pool and they have to decide between drowning or like falling into it. And so like this is a very fun scenario. That was awesome. I liked everything, but I agree with you. I think the hot air balloon was the strongest. I think.
Yeah,
but they were all
by
good.
far.
They were all
But
good.
all really fun, but I'm really glad we at least read the hot air balloon one as well. I'd like to put a period on this episode, which we are at that period, my friends. So thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't considered it, consider checking out the Spotify and the Apple Podcast, giving us a nice rating there. It really does help us out, and we appreciate it. And as always, guys, we thank you so much for listening and supporting the show. It means the fucking world. We will catch you in the next scary episode.
We will see you in the next one. And also to everyone, check out Man and Lysett on Twitter and Facebook. And of course, check out their subreddit, user/Man and Lysett, where, or not their subreddit, their Reddit account where they post all these stories on No Sleep. Fantastic author, and they make really cool little Halloween designs. So be sure to pick some up if you're interested. And thank you, Manon, for making really cool stories. That last one especially was awesome. I loved it. Thank you all so much for watching. It means the world. We will catch you in the next one. Bye.